Hello YouTube, Z-Manzilla here, and I was asked to do a tutorial about splash screens. So sometimes when you're playing my boards, especially my most recent one, Devil City Ransom, you will notice that I like to put up a splash screen before the game proper starts. And so I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on some techniques you can use to accomplish that, and some things to consider while you're doing it. So, and of course, you'll see Echo's lovely face here, and Echo's actually going to be helping me demonstrate something in a minute. So we'll get back to him in a moment here. But first, let's go ahead and play this map that I've made to kind of demonstrate the splash screen, just sort of how it looks. So yeah, board starts up, and we see it's Doom Guy on a Box is the game that we are playing right now. And it is a Doom Guy on a box, along with an indicator telling us to press scoreboard to continue. So once whoever is looking at this gets tired of looking at the screen, they can just hit the scoreboard. And here we are. I am Doom Guy. Here's the box. And I am Doom Guy on a box. Check me out. So, yeah, and as you can see, there's no content on this board or anything. It was just a demonstration, but, as you know, this is all done in the same module, by the way. So, all right, well, that is a splash screen. So let's go ahead and just look at the gutty what's of that and see how I did it. So we'll go ahead and load the editor back up, probably be staring. Yep, there's Echo. And okay, so as I said before, Echo plays a pretty big part in my technique here. So first thing, well, let's start with the basics here. Why you would want to do a splash screen, and I mean, there are a variety of reasons, but one is that it kind of front loads sort of the mood and theme of your board. It just looks cool, gives you a sort of a unique a unique thing that you can show off when you're showing your board to other people. Now, over here we have the sort of the guts of how this whole operation works here. So let's go through the process here. So first things first, I have it so that here's the initial player start right here. It can be literally anywhere for this to work, although we'll go over some tips and tricks a little later to get the best results. And so I have it set up so that the way that this works is I use a module indicator to say on player entered. So once the player enters the module, it enables the splash screen camera, and also does my gameplay settings, which, one gameplay setting in particular that I do like to set for this one is, where is it? Oh yeah, under SNAPMAP help behavior, normally that's set to show scoreboard. I like to set that to do nothing, and you'll see why in a bit. So you set your gameplay settings active, whatever gameplay settings you plan on having for your board, you can do that at this time. But you also, on player entered is when that's the point at which you want to enable the camera. I also have it so that it teleports the character over here. That's a completely optional thing. One of the things I like to do is try to include the player in the splash screen somewhere. They've got their cool custom armor, at least, if you have it set that way. So they get to see themselves and be part of the splash screen, which is kind of cool. So you can use that to teleport them into place, which, by the way, is where Echo comes in. So whenever I'm building, I always like to have an Echo handy, and I set him so that he doesn't show on start. That's just, just so if I do accidentally leave him in, he doesn't just show up. But Echo is the exact same height as your Doom Guy. But whereas you can't just move the player start to wherever you want to put it, Echo can be placed on top of all kinds of things. Like, you can't put a player start on top of a custom geo box, but you can put Echo there all day. So I use Echo as my sort of stand-in for when I'm adjusting my camera views, and I'll show you a little bit about that in a minute. But anyway, that's why I've got an Echo standing there. So anyway, on player entered, you enable the camera and teleport the player to wherever you want them to be. And that is what happens when it cuts over here. Now, there's a couple ways that you can do the whole like cut to the camera when the board starts up thing. If you're using that campaign fade-in screen, the black one with all the embers that come up from the bottom of the screen, then there's a couple ways you can transition from that to your cut screen. The reason why I like doing it from on player entered is because if you do, like, what are the other ones here? Let's take a look at the other options, and I'll tell you why I don't like them. So you put in a map, and then, like, you know, there's one which is on map fade in begin and on map started, and either one of those, okay, so you do one that's on map fade in begin, and what happens is the map fades in, and then like about a tenth of a second after the fade in starts is when it would switch to your camera, and there's still that like 1/10 of a second where you're seeing like the first person camera, which I'm not crazy about. And then if you do it on map started, it'll actually like switch to the camera, but the fade in won't have happened yet. So it's actually switching to the camera, but you know, you're not seeing it. And so you know, that can be a little problematic. It doesn't quite work as well. The reason why I do why I switched to the camera on player entered, if you noticed when the cut screen happened, it literally went from the black of that screen just straight over to the camera. There was no fade whatsoever. The rest of the fade in happened after the camera got disabled. So I feel like this, as far as like, you know, if you're going to do a splash screen, this is the best way to do it, you know, as far as like just making it look cool. So on player entered, you enable the camera, it switches over to your camera immediately, and then you have your player teleport in. That makes the player part of the splash screen. So, the splash screen itself, let's look at the elements of the splash screen. Now, real quick, for those that aren't aware, when you're doing camera manipulation, I'm not sure what it is on PC, but I know on the PS4 and Xbox One, if you click the R3, that gives you, it puts you in first-person view of the camera, which makes adjustments really easy. You can hold the right trigger to do like all kinds of cool things like Dutch rolls and things like, or Dutch tilts and things like that, to kind of get your camera exactly where you want it. And again, that's where Echo being there comes in handy, because Echo is the same height as Doom Guy. There are some exceptions to that. So for example, if you're starting your Doom Guy with just his fists out, or like with a chainsaw, or any of the bigger weapons that kind of get him to hunch over a little bit, your framing is not going to be exact, because he's actually going to come out a little shorter, and some experimentation's needed. But using Echo as your stand-in for when you're just first setting up the camera is a really great idea, because that gives you sort of the general idea where Doom Guy's going to be when he teleports over there. But yeah, as you can see, you know, you can just basically line it up however you want it, and then set it and forget it. Now, what was I saying? Okay, so we got these other elements over here. So what's happened is that this is what the player's looking at when they get to your splash screen, and you know. So here are all the various elements. You'll notice I've got some text over there. It says Doom Guy on a box. There's a message underneath that says press scoreboard to continue. And so just real quick, I just want to show you something here. Notice how the press scoreboard to continue is always facing, but you can obviously, like, if you really want to get creative, you can have like cool angles and things like that with that other one. So the difference between those two techniques. So you know, first off, if you're using, you know, world text, obviously, you know, you can just do the, where is it, the always facing. If you set that to false, it's obviously going to stay whatever angle you've got it at, and that will, you know, allow you to do like some of the cool angle things like I did on Companion Core, where I had like the letters sort of kind of coming at you from an angle, and things like that. Or if you set your text so that it's always facing, which is what I like to do with like any little message that I really do want to make sure the player reads, like the blinking press scoreboard to continue, then what you do is you set that to always facing, so it's always just perfectly aligned in your frame, regardless of where you put the camera. Now, you know, obviously the placement of the message itself is going to have some bearing on where it shows up on your screen, but at the very least, you know, you'll have the ability to kind of put that wherever you want to put it. So, and it'll always face and look good. So in the meantime, the other way of getting some letters onto your onto your splash screen is by using decals. Now, you do need to use a piece of glass that allows you to show decals. So, for example, here, let's so far, like for the right now, I'm using a skybox to kind of do that thing. Normally, though, what I like to do is let's go over to the Doom textures here, and we'll just pick some nice glass that. Like here's a good one here, the frosted and sweaty. Now notice, by the way, that when I do that, it does sort of blur up the background a little bit as well, which creates its own cool little effect. And so, you know, you've got this cool sort of, you know, thing. Anything that's in the background is a little bit blurry, and on top of it all, you can actually use decals for your lettering. On your splash screen, and you know, you can even do some really cool dynamic things here, like, you know, like imagine like having this angle of Doom Guy, you know, while the letters are just sort of coming out from behind him like that, you know. These are all some cool things that you can do. So yeah, so that's generally speaking how you get decals to float in your splash screens like that. So in any case, that's basically it. So here's the process here, and this is the part that's kind of important. I feel like if you're going to do a splash screen, you know, most of the time when you see folks that do the splash screens for their boards, they sort of flip by, and you know, they set hook them up to timers, and after 5 seconds it goes to the next, and then after 5 seconds it goes to the next, so what I like to do, though, is I like to make it so that the player can actually control when the splash screen ends. You know, that's what that press scoreboard continue button is all about. So the way I've got that hooked up over here, and this is important, by the way, because if you don't do this just right, you end up giving your player like a weird bug or cheese. So I have it set up so that when the player presses the scoreboard button, it tests a Boolean I've called map started. So the map started defaults to false. So when it's tested false, first thing it does is sets it to true, but then it disables the camera. It hides all of my text and volumes and stuff like that so that those are all invisible. And then it teleports the player to wherever it is you want them to start your board from. And then, of course, by setting it to true, what happens is if they press the scoreboard button again later down the line, then it won't teleport them here again, which is very important. So, yeah. In any case, that's how you do this part of the of doing a splash screen. And if you have any questions, by all means, please go ahead and post those in the comments. I'll be happy to answer those. And if you haven't already, please be sure to like it and subscribe. Thanks for watching.